Imagine sitting across a table from the most powerful railroad executives in America. You are young, you are relatively unknown, and the men across from you control the entire transportation network of the most rapidly expanding economy on Earth. Most people in that room would have been grateful for any deal at all. They would have taken whatever scraps were offered and walked away feeling lucky. John D. Rockefeller walked out of that room with a deal so ingenious, so ruthless, so perfectly constructed, that historians would later call it one of the most diabolical business arrangements in American history. And the negotiation principle behind that deal is still being used today by Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and every major corporation quietly dominating their industry. By the end of this episode, you will know exactly what that principle is and how to use it yourself. This is the Rockefeller Code. To understand what Rockefeller did, you need to understand the world he was operating in. It was the late 1860s. America was exploding. The Civil War had just ended. Industry was moving faster than anyone had ever seen. Oil had been discovered in Pennsylvania in 1859, and within a decade it was the most valuable commodity in the country. Every ambitious man in America was rushing into the oil business. Hundreds of small refineries were competing frantically, cutting prices, undercutting each other, fighting for every barrel. It was chaos. And in chaos, most people see problems. Rockefeller saw an opportunity hiding in plain sight. He understood something that almost nobody else in the oil business had figured out yet. The oil itself was not the real power. The real power was in how the oil moved. Every barrel of oil in America had to travel by railroad to reach its buyers. The railroads were the arteries of the entire industry. Control the arteries, and you control everything that flows through them. Rockefeller was 31 when he founded Standard Oil in 1870, but the negotiation instinct behind the railroad deal had been building since he was a teenager, counting coins by candlelight. And now, with a real company behind him, he was ready to use it. In the fall of 1871, Rockefeller quietly assembled a group of the largest Cleveland refiners and formed a company called the South Improvement Company. On the surface, it looked like a simple business association. In reality, it was one of the most carefully constructed negotiation traps in business history. The South Improvement Company was a masterpiece of corporate strategy. It served as a secret alliance between Rockefeller and the three major railroads of the era: the Pennsylvania Railroad, the Erie Railroad, and the New York Central Railroad. The railroads wanted stable shipping prices. Rockefeller wanted to eliminate his competition. Both sides got exactly what they wanted. Here is exactly how the deal worked. The official rate per barrel of oil shipped from Cleveland to New York was $2.56. But Rockefeller's company would receive a secret rebate of $1.06 on every single barrel he shipped, cutting his costs nearly in half compared to every competitor in the market. But that was only the first part. And honestly, that was the less interesting part. The truly devastating part was the drawback. Every time one of Rockefeller's competitors shipped a barrel of oil, the railroad would take a portion of what that competitor paid and hand it directly to Rockefeller. His rivals were literally funding his expansion with every shipment they made. Read that again. Every time a competitor shipped oil, Rockefeller got paid. He was making money from his rival's business while simultaneously undercutting their prices in the market. They were paying for their own destruction, and they did not even know it. The railroads also committed to informing Standard Oil of every move their competitors made: shipping destinations, prices, delivery dates, all of it flowing directly to Rockefeller's desk. He did not just have a better deal. He had better intelligence than anyone in the industry. He knew everything. His competitors knew nothing. When word of the deal leaked to newspapers, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Independent oilmen across Pennsylvania were stunned and outraged. A 14-year-old girl named Ida Tarbell, daughter of one of the independent oil producers destroyed by the deal, later described the reaction. At the news, all of oil country rushed into the streets. On every lip there was one word: conspiracy. Competitors who had built their refineries over years of hard work suddenly understood the impossible position they were in. One refinery owner later testified, "We were told that unless we sold out to Rockefeller, we would be crushed." We sold our company at a loss because we had no choice. They told us they had a contract with the railroad, which they could use to destroy us. We figured our refinery was worth $150,000. We sold it for $65,000. By March of 1872, newspapers were broadly attacking the South Improvement Company as an assault on free enterprise. Railroad leaders eventually ended their contracts publicly. The state of Pennsylvania moved to suspend the company's charter. But here is the thing. By the time the deal collapsed, it had already done everything Rockefeller needed it to do. Dozens of competitors had sold. His market share had exploded. The damage to his rivals was permanent. Rockefeller later said simply, if he did not get rebates, somebody else would. They were for the wariest, the shrewdest, the most persistent. So what is the actual negotiation principle Rockefeller used? Because it was not simply about getting a discount. Getting a discount is ordinary. What Rockefeller did was something far more sophisticated. He used a principle that negotiation experts today call asymmetric leverage, and it works like this. Most people negotiate by trying to get the best deal for themselves. They push for lower prices, better terms, faster delivery. They are negotiating for their own benefit. Rockefeller negotiated differently. He asked one question before every deal. How can I structure this so that my competitor loses ground every time either of us makes a move? The railroad deal was not just a discount. It was a structural trap. Every barrel his competitor shipped made Rockefeller stronger. Every dollar his competitor spent made Rockefeller richer. The system was designed so that the act of competing against him accelerated his rival's own destruction. This is asymmetric leverage. You are not just winning, you are building a system where your competitor's activity benefits you, where the more they fight, the faster they lose. Wall Street uses this today in short-selling strategies where the decline of a competitor directly generates profit. Technology platforms use it when a competitor's users generate data that improves the dominant platform's algorithm. Retail giants use it when their volume discounts make it structurally impossible for smaller competitors to match their prices. The mechanism changes. The principle is identical to what Rockefeller designed in 1871. So, how do you apply asymmetric leverage in your own career or business today? You start by changing the question you ask before any negotiation. Stop asking, how do I get the best deal? Start asking, how do I structure this so that the natural activity of the market works in my favor over time? In business, can you build a volume commitment that gives you pricing your competitors structurally cannot match? Can you create a partnership where your partner's growth automatically increases your market share? In your career, can you position yourself so that your colleague's success increases your visibility rather than competing with it? Can you build a skill set so specific and rare that the growth of your industry naturally raises your value? Rockefeller did not invent asymmetric leverage, but he used it more ruthlessly and more brilliantly than anyone before him. And the people building serious wealth today, quietly, systematically, are asking the same question he asked at that railroad negotiating table in 1871. How do I build a system where the game itself works for me? John D. Rockefeller walked into that railroad meeting as a relatively young oil refiner in a chaotic, fragmented industry. He walked out with a structural advantage so powerful that within a decade he would control 90% of all oil in America. Not because he was lucky, not because he was ruthless, though he was, but because he understood that the greatest deals are not the ones where you get the best price. They are the ones where you design the system. Design the system. That is the code. This is the Rockefeller Code.